Well, not all are taking a victory lap. Small business owners are on edge as they'll still be paying those tariffs, at least for now.
Joining us now is Andrew Morris. He's senior litigation counsel for the new Civil Liberties Alliance, who is representing one of the plaintiffs in this suit against the Trump administration. Andy, great to see you. I just want to point out that the new Civil Liberties Alliance, it is because of you that we have had one of the greatest, I would say the greatest Supreme Court decision of this century that overturned the Chevron doctrine, that dismantled the administrative state, that championed smaller businesses, that champions private industry, and was celebrated by conservatives in the right. Why take this case on?
Yes, thank you. That is right. I'm sorry?
Why take this case on?
That was last year. And this year, yes. And so we took this case on because we see it as still in line with attacking the excesses of the administrative state in certain ways. In this case, the concerns are that what the president has done is ordered tariffs under an emergency statute. He's declared an emergency, and then we've seen the result. It's been the chaos of all these tariffs. He's bypassed the tariff laws and claimed, as the court in New York called it, unlimited power to order tariffs, to pause them, to increase them, to waive them. And under the Constitution, which gives tariff authority to Congress, and then laws that Congress has passed, the president doesn't have that authority.
Now, by the way, I share Dagan's appreciation for that decision we were talking about earlier, the Chevron decision.
Thank
critical,
you, David.
Is an incredible decision. On this case, I'm not quite as sure that I share your views. The Emergency Economic Powers Act does give the president broad powers. And ever since, frankly, ever since the crazy trade wars we had that came out of the Smoot-Hawley decision by Congress, the president has been given more powers over the decades since the Great Depression. I realize the word tariffs is not actually in the Emergency Economic Powers Act. So isn't a tariff applied to China, though? They do say this authorizes the president to regulate various economic transactions, including imports, exports, and other financial transactions. It requires an emergency. Don't you think the fentanyl crisis that we now face as Americans could be defined as an emergency that would give the president the right to enact this act?
Well, David, we don't dispute that whether fentanyl is an emergency. We don't challenge that. The court in New York decided that, but the terrorists don't really do anything to attack the fentanyl emergency, right? They're across the board.
Well, they put pressure on China. They do put pressure on China and related countries that are involved in getting that horrible drug into our country.
Right. The problem in the way that the laws are applied is they're totally out of proportion to the fentanyl. They're not focused on fentanyl. They're just everything. They're flip over the game board strategy, as somebody said. And more important here, David, before we even get to that point, is tariffs are different from regulation and from blockades and embargoes on foreign countries. That tariffs are a tax on the American people, and the emergency statute the president's invoked authorizes the presidents, if a surprise emergency comes up, to do the kind of things we're familiar with, right? Impose a trade embargo, freeze assets that belong to terrorists. But it does not, so tariffs are different. It does not permit the president to impose taxes on the American people. That's why the fact that the word tariffs isn't there is a big deal. And in just the basic way that lawyers interpret laws, the absence of that important word is a big deal. It means that when Congress thought about this law and gave a list of tools the president could use, freezing assets, imposing trade embargoes, and didn't include the word tariff, that means that Congress did not authorize the president to impose tariffs. It has a whole set of tariff laws the president can use, and they're not at issue in this case. This case just says that these emergency laws can't be abused, and the president is held to the tools that Congress assigned him.
Andy, and I just want to point out that Steve Moore, he's a frequent guest on this program, said, agreed with you. The courts get it right on tariffs. We've argued from day one that this president or any president does not have the constitutional authority to unilaterally raise taxes, full stop. Andy,
Well-
next steps for the case. We have the stay, and does it make its way to the Supreme Court, you think?
But I'm glad we're in good company with Steve Moore. That's very encouraging to hear. And then as far as next steps, yes, as of yesterday, as you all explained, 2 different courts held that these are unlawful in two different states. And then today, those orders were put on hold so that the tariffs are still in place. Now there will be action at the Court of Appeals level, and then possibly to the Supreme Court if the government doesn't get satisfaction. So there's a realistic chance this will be at the Supreme Court sometime in the near future, but it's impossible to say at this point. A lot has happened in the last 24 hours, and at the moment, the tariffs are in place, and this is teed up at the Court of Appeals level, which is right above the district court level.
Yeah, well, Andy, there's a lot more to talk about this. There will be an occasion to do so, particularly if it goes to the Supreme Court. So please stay in touch, all right? We appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. We'd be happy to do. And we started this, so there's zigs and zags, but we still think that this position is strong, as you know, so we'll look forward to talking.
Okay, you still haven't completely convinced me, so you got to come back and try.
Okay, well, I'll hold on to that completely, and we'll finish up.
All right.
But Andy and the organization giving voice to the small business owners, again, they don't, carry the same weight as, say, a Tim Cook. They don't get invited to the White House.